Good morning, and welcome to our Zoom worship youth service. We preface our service by acknowledging that the land on which our homes and our church were built was not uninhabited when European settlers arrived here with their ideas of conquest and ownership. For those of us who live in Moscow, Pullman, or other nearby communities, we live on the ancestral homelands of the Nimipu, called Nez Perce by the French-speaking traders, the Palouse, and the Tshumsh, called the Coeur d'Alene. If you're joining us from another place, I encourage you to discover who inhabited or moved through the place where you now live in the times before colonization and genocide. We pause and remember that we live on ground that is sacred, ground that was stolen, ground that cries out for justice and responsible stewardship. May our remembering help us find the courage to do our part to restore wholeness to the earth and all her peoples. And now let's join our voices together for our words of welcome, our unity, and our sung affirmation. Whoever you are, wherever you've come from, whatever your beliefs, whomever you love, and however bumpy your life's journey, know that you are welcome here. We're hoping that you have a chalice or a candle to light and something to light it with. Let's go ahead and light them together.
Hello, I'm Ginger Yoder, and I am going to light our chalice this morning. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share.
Today's also the fourth Sunday of Advent. As Unitarian Universalists, we may or may not celebrate Advent as a season of waiting for the birth of Jesus. Still, we see value in intentionally creating a space and time to wait, prepare, and celebrate this season. While Ginger lights the candles, I'll read words written by my colleague, the Reverend Megan Lister. We light our first candle for hope. May we dare to open the shadowy places in our lives and memories to the healing light of community. With the creative power of hope, we express our longing for peace and prepare our heart to be transformed. We light the second candle for peace. We bring our hope into the world when we practice peacemaking. Our caring community aspires to be a source of freedom from violence and exclusion. May we become the ones we have been waiting for, as June Jordan writes. Together, may we strive to create a lasting peace. We light the third candle for joy. Not just any simple cheer, but the experience of joy that cannot be contained. Advent asks us to proclaim our gladness as a gift to the world, even when sorrow and uncertainty abound. May we share our hearts through our words, our music, and the way we live our lives. Let the fullness of our joy lead to more freedom. And last, but definitely not least, we light the fourth candle for love. There is no greater power in the world than love. Through this community, we can become a blessing to one another. Our love is magnified and lives are changed. We can hardly wait any longer for the wonder of love to be revealed. May we risk enough to become vulnerable and welcome holy tenderness. And now let's join our voices for our sung affirmation.
From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung in every land by every tongue.
So again, good morning. I hope you are feeling warm and cozy with a hot beverage close at hand, because it's that time of year. It's the time of year for long underwear and wool socks, fuzzy hats and thick gloves. It's the time of year when we have to shovel the driveway again and again and again and again. Snow tires and yak tracks, skis and snowshoes, fires in the fireplace, and soup bubbling on the stove. With the sun as far away from us as it gets, It is cold here on the Palouse. And it's also dark. It's dark for most of the day. The sun didn't come up until 7:30 this morning, and it will go down before 4. That's not a lot of daylight for getting daytime things done. So many of our traditions and practices at this time of year are aimed at keeping the dark at bay. Sparkly lights hang from our roofs and gutters. We have parties and revelry galore. We deck out our tree in little electric sequins. But if we're not careful, these artificial lights can keep our eyes from adjusting to the dark of winter. We might miss the subtle beauty of the night sky. Metaphorically speaking, if we lose ourselves in the hustle and bustle, we might miss the quiet, tender songs of our hearts or spirits. So today's service will invite us to set aside our to-do list and check in with the deep, the subtle, the mysterious, the beauty found only in the dark.
Dark of winter, soft and still, your grounds me. Let my thoughts go where they will, ease my mind profoundly, and then my soul will sing a song, a blessed song of love eternal. Gentle darkness, soft and still, bring your quiet to me. Darkness, soothe my weary eyes, that I may see more clearly. When my heart with sorrow cries, comfort and caress me. And then my soul may hear a voice, a still small voice of love eternal. Darkness, when my fears arise, let your peace flow through me.
We've come now to a time of meditation or of prayer, and I'd invite you to get comfortable. Take a few deep breaths, maybe close your eyes. If we can get away from civilization on a clear winter night, something particularly magical waits for us. With no ambient light to dull our senses and no clouds to obscure our view, we see that the sky is almost filled with stars. Some faint and far away, some so close it almost feels as if we could reach out and touch them. I'm reminded of the time astronomers aimed the Hubble Space Telescope at a blank spot, a place with no known stars, and left it there for 10 days. This experiment produced an image dubbed Hubble Deep Field of over 3,000 galaxies. When we look up at that star-studded sky, when we think about the fact that the light we're seeing has traveled years and decades and centuries and millennium to arrive in our eye, we can't help but feel awe at the size and the scope of the universe. What if we, each of us, contained such multitudes? In the quiet, I invite you to direct the powerful telescope that is your awareness, your imagination, toward the dark places in your psyche. The places where all the questions with the answer, I don't know, live. The places where mystery resides. The parts of you that acknowledge how little truly we can understand, how little we can control. Let the bright and noisy places fade away. Tune into the sound of your breath, your heartbeat. Let the darkness within be, and then let it bloom. The northern lights, or the aurora borealis, are the beautiful dancing waves of light that have captivated people for millennia. But for all its beauty, this spectacular light show is a rather violent event. Energized particles from the sun slam into Earth's upper atmosphere at speeds of up to 45 million miles per hour. But our planet's magnetic field protects us from the onslaught. As Earth's magnetic field redirects the particles toward the North Pole, the dramatic process transforms into a cinematic atmospheric phenomenon that dazzles and fascinates scientists and skywatchers alike. At any given moment, the sun is ejecting charged particles from its corona, or upper atmosphere, creating what's called the solar wind. When that wind slams into the Earth's ionosphere, or upper atmosphere, the aurora is born. In the northern hemisphere, the phenomenon is called the northern lights, aurora borealis, while in the southern hemisphere, it's called the southern lights, aurora australis. These particles are deflected toward the poles of Earth by our planet's magnetic field and interact with our atmosphere, depositing energy and causing the atmosphere to fluoresce, said Billy Teets, an astronomer and the director of Dyer Observatory at Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee. The bright colors of the northern lights are dictated by the chemical composition of Earth's atmosphere. Every type of atom or molecule, whether it's atomic hydrogen or a molecule like carbon dioxide, absorbs and radiates its own unique set of colors, which is analogous to how every human being has a unique set of fingerprints. Teets told space.com. I want to begin the homily this morning by giving credit where credit is due. All of the beautiful pictures of the aurora that you've seen were taken by our very own Sam Welsh, musician, electrician, video editor, sound designer, and also amateur astronomer and photographer. It takes some dedication to get good photos of the northern lights. You have to be willing to be cold. You have to be able to hold still. You have to get away from civilization a bit with no assurance that the lights will appear. According to Sam, you have to be just a little bit obsessed. Now, I've only seen the lights once. It was when I was about, maybe 11 or 12. My dad and I went out into a field a long way from town on a night when they were predicted to be bright enough to see from my native New Hampshire. I remember it was cold, and to be honest, I was a little disappointed at first. They were really faint, this pale green, where I had imagined shimmering, glowing rainbows. But the northern lights sort of grew on me. As we stood there quietly, I remember watching them dance and shimmer. I noticed the subtle opalescence at the edges, not dramatic rainbows, but really quiet, beautiful dancing colors that I had to look very carefully in order to see. I stopped whining about the cold and leaned into my dad, who wrapped an arm around me, his solidness and size radiating heat and keeping the chill at bay. We were quiet there together, just watching and listening, though there was no discernible sound to hear. All these years later, I can still conjure the feeling, the awe and wonder, and also the sense of safety, of being held. In that moment, I felt connected to my dad and also to the whole universe. Whenever I hear they're going to be visible, I head out of town to try and catch them. I haven't gotten lucky again yet, but I'll keep trying. Maybe I'm just not obsessed enough. And I want to see them because they're beautiful and magical, and also because I miss my dad. And whenever I go outside to observe some astronomical phenomenon, I feel close to him again. Now, if you've been around a while, you probably know that my dad was far from perfect. He drank too much and he could be mean. And yet, I have all these sweet memories of nights spent peeking through the cheap reflector telescope he bought me for my 8th birthday, of him patiently adjusting the eyepiece. I remember watching the shadow of the Earth race across the moon's surface during a lunar eclipse. I remember looking at comets. I remember lying on our back on a blanket watching the Perseids. Through the telescope, I counted the moons of Jupiter. I saw Saturn's rings and the Orion Nebula. My relationship with my dad was complicated and messy, and it's left some scars in me, but it was also full of love. I am who I am because of my dad. In fact, I am who I am because of all the people who have loved me in my lifetime, however imperfectly. Poet Amy Nezhukumatahiel wrote a poem called Letter to the Northern Lights. It goes like this. The light here on Earth keeps us plenty busy. A fire in central Pennsylvania still burns bright since 1962. Whole squads of tiny squid blaze up the coast of Japan before sunrise. Of course, you didn't show when we went searching for you, but we found other lights. Firefly, strawberry moon, a tiny catch of it in each other's teeth. Someone who saw you said they laid down in the middle of the road and took you all in. And I'm guessing you're used to that, people falling over themselves to catch a glimpse of you, and your weird mint glow shushing itself over the lake. Aurora? I'd rather stay indoors with him, even if it meant a rickety hotel and its wood paneling, golf carpeting in the bathrooms, and grainy soap cakes. Instead of waiting until just the right hour of the shortest blue night of the year when you finally felt moved enough to collide your gas particles with sun particles. I'd rather share sunrise with him and loon call over the lake with him, the slap of shoreline threaded through screen windows with him. My heart slams in my chest against my shirt. It's a kind of kindling you'd never be able to light on your own. And reflecting on the poem, writer Devin Kelly describes the turn at the end. The speaker, fed up with the inaccessible, flighty nature of one particular kind of light, finally says, "You're not worth it," and lists off in defiance a world indoors, read without light, that might provide more illumination than light itself. In this moment, the poem becomes less a poem about light and more a poem about how we orient ourselves to the world and what in the world we orient ourselves toward. Where do we turn in this world and how? It becomes a poem that offers a different way of noticing, and having noticed, a different way of framing or loving what has been noticed. Why waste our time chasing the beautiful but inaccessible, the speaker seems to say, when we could be finding beauty in what is already here? And then, as if that weren't enough, the poem then asks, what if you were in love when you found that beauty? What then? Ordinary wonder plus ordinary love equates to a kind of shared, deeply mined, deeply felt moment, one worth more than the flighty chance at the extraordinary. Perhaps the moment of wonder is not when we see something we've never seen before. Perhaps more specifically, the moment of wonder can be a moment when we see the potential for love in something we thought we knew wholly, and as such spent a long time ignoring or overlooking. Perhaps the moment of wonder is just a reminder, not a revelation. It is the world saying, I'm here, when you thought you'd heard all you needed to hear. Poems often remind us that our relationship with the world is far from settled. To be open to that uncertainty, which includes so much possibility, is a beautiful thing. That alone is a kind of wonder. Uncertainty and possibility, the unknown and the process of becoming, these things coexist in the same place in us. To grow, to be faithful to our sense of call, we need to be willing to let go of the familiar and the controllable. We need to venture into the dark, to bring an intensity of attention to what we can't yet see. We need to wait quietly while the delicate flutters of new insight dance themselves into something we can grasp. I'm struck too by the contrast, how delicate the northern lights look, when in fact they're caused by dramatic and powerful forces, solar winds blowing at 45 million miles an hour, the whole planet's magnetic field. And the light, it comes from the particles combusting, they're exploding. Which is to say, sometimes it takes a lot to get our attention. Sometimes it feels like an effort to stay awake and alert and present to life. There's something in me, at least, that keeps wanting to slide back into a habitual, mindless way of being that feels almost like sleepwalking. Meanwhile, the whole world is yelling at me, wake up, look, pay attention. The sunset over the snow, delicate ice crystals on a spider web, a comet, the full moon, and more. The amazing, unique, intricate, beautiful human being sitting across from me, in person or on the other side of a computer screen. Can I quiet my internal dialogue and approach this person as a sacred mystery? Because when I can, and when I do, stories unfurl that are just as miraculous and stunning as the northern lights. The tender kind of questions that bloom in the dark are things like, why am I here? What's the meaning of life? What happens when we die? How do I keep going after losing love? In the dark, we don't get essays or even short answers. We get glimmering, shimmering glimpses at the edge of our awareness. The vision sharpens when our stories collide with other people's stories. My dancing, shimmering answers bump into your dancing, shimmering answers. And the force behind it, which is love, shines like the sun, and it bombards us with evidence every second of our existence. Messy and miraculous, potent and subtle, the forces that make up the universe are the forces that make up us, our bodies and our spirits. The more I wrote, the less it felt like a homily, and the more I found myself sliding into poetry. But that's as it should be, I think, on a day when I'm issuing an invitation. Leave behind the clear, the logical, the brightly lit, the solid and practical. And answer when the season whispers. Turn toward the dark, toward the mystery, toward the unknown and the unknowable. Have faith, our eyes can adjust to the subtle palette. Thomas Merton, philosopher and Trappist monk, spoke of the via negativa, the spiritual path that involves silence, stillness, darkness, absence, and an embrace of the mystery rather than a seeking of truth. He too resorted to poetry to describe it, writing, "Be still, listen to the stones of the wall. Be silent, they try to speak your name. Listen to the living walls. Who are you? Whose silence are you?" Also this one. The whole world is secretly on fire. The stones burn, even the stones they burn me. How can a man be still or listen to all the things burning? How can he dare to sit with them when all their silence is on fire? Our little corner of the universe, obscure as it might be, seems almost absurdly prejudiced toward life, growth, beauty, and love. I think of the way the sun, which makes life possible, burns with such enthusiasm that it shoots off harmful radiation. I think of the way the entire planet curls its magnetic field around us, like my dad's arms, protective and nurturing. Life isn't perfect, and some of the questions that live in the mysterious dark are things like, why is there so much suffering? And what is it that makes people choose selfishness and greed over justice and mercy? No, life isn't perfect, but it is miraculous and beautiful. And when we let the wisdom of the dark bloom in us, certain things do become clear. We have the capacity to embrace all the ways matter and energy dance and move and collide and shine. Life is a miracle. Love is a miracle. And we humans, we are life and love becoming. So be it, and blessed be. Let's sing together now. Winds, be still.
Winds be still, storm clouds pass and silence come. Peace grace this time with harmony. Fly, bird of hope, and shine, light of love, and in calm let all find tranquility. Bird, fly high, lift our gaze for distant view. Help us to sense life's mystery. Fly high and far, and lead us each to see how we move through the winds of eternity. Light shining, illuminate our inward view. Help us to see with clarity. Shine bright and true.
closing words are go to the limits of your longing. Listen. God speaks to each of us as he makes us, then walks with us silently out of the night. These are the words we dimly hear. You, sent out beyond your recall, go to the limits of your longing. Embody me. Flare up like a flame and make big shadows I can move in. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. Don't let yourself lose me. Nearby is the country they call life. You will know it by its seriousness. Give me your hand. Please say with me the words to embody the flame. We extinguish this chalice that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light our paths as we leave this place. May it guide our way until we are together again. Beloveds, life is so full of mystery and magic and unknown and scary things. And there's a lot that we can't know, a lot that we can't see, a lot that we can't predict. But I do know this, whatever through there is to get through, we'll get through it together. I know that on the other side of death, love lingers. I know that the people who care about us shape us and live on in us in this magical way that we then pass on to those who come after us. It's more beautiful even than the Northern Lights. It's more beautiful than anything, this way we weave love and compassion through the generations. I am so grateful to each and every one of you for being a part of my life, a part of the being that I am. And anything I have to offer, I offer passing it forward. Any wisdom I've gained comes from all of you. So thank you, and I love you, and have a good week.